What if reality isn't a fixed thing? What if you could actually shift into another reality, a reality that you've designed yourself? How would you do this? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, then you'll find some tactics and strategies for doing this in today's video. And at the end, I'll share a true story of how this played out in my own life in a pretty amazing and unexpected way and brought me to the life that I now have. A couple of years ago, I stumbled across an author called Vadim Zeland, and his work blew my mind with its unique perspective on how to play the game of life. He wrote a number of books on reality transsurfing, which is a concept that revolves around the idea of parallel realities, which Zeland calls timelines. I'll get into this more a little later, but first, a little about this mysterious author. Vadim Zeland is a pseudonym, and he's Russian. That's all we really know about him. He's chosen to remain relatively anonymous, allowing his teachings and concepts to take center stage. And there are certainly some very intriguing concepts that he shares with the world. I'm going to run through some of his ideas, specifically the ones that relate to parallel realities and how to move into different ones. I recommend you buy the books if you're interested in mastering your life and crafting positive outcomes for yourself. I'll leave the links below. So, let's get into the concepts. In a nutshell, Zeland introduces an approach for navigating the multiple dimensions of reality and consciously shaping one's life experiences. His writing style blends elements of quantum physics, metaphysics, philosophy, and practical advice. He presents concepts such as the space of variations, importance, intention, and balance as key components of his reality-shaping framework. It's essentially an energy management system that allows one to be aware of and control our feelings and the direction of our thoughts and energies. Reality transurfing is the way we can achieve our desired outcomes by aligning our intentions, thoughts, and actions with the natural laws that govern reality. The books outline specific techniques and principles designed to help us navigate through parallel realities and attract the experiences and realities that resonate with our intentions. So let's dive right into them. Zeland talks about something he calls the space of variations, which means that reality is not fixed, but rather a dynamic field of infinite possibilities. Each possibility represents a variation of reality with different potential outcomes and experiences. These variations can be thought of as parallel realities or dimensions that exist simultaneously, something that certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, such as the many worlds interpretation, talks about. This theory discusses the existence of multiple parallel universes which represent all possible outcomes of quantum events. The nature of reality is dynamic, and the future is not predetermined, but rather a result of the choices and intentions made in the present moment. Everything comes from now. There is nothing else but the now. Zeland calls each of those different potential realities timelines. They are the different trajectories or paths that we can take within this space of variations. You could think of it as a film strip where multiple movies are playing, and in the present moment, you are caught up in one of the frames of one movie. In Zeland's worldview, each timeline represents a different version of reality with its own unique set of circumstances and potential outcomes. We purposefully beam our conscious will, or conscious navigation, by surfing reality in this manner, so that we can actively choose the timeline that best matches where we want our lives to go. It's interesting that the idea of moving between timelines also shares a metaphorical connection with another principle of quantum mechanics, where the act of observation and intention can influence the outcome of quantum events. While not a direct representation of quantum physics, this concept echoes the notion of the observer effect and the role of consciousness in shaping the unfolding of events. So, the space of variations tells us that nothing is set in stone and that we have the option to surf this dynamic space and enter a new reality. The key to achieving this is our focus. You might be wondering how we can manage our emotions and attention. What are the natural laws that govern reality? Let's deal with the first question. As we all know, life is full of distractions and sometimes drama, and so it can be difficult to deal with our emotional reactions and keep focused. Zeland suggests a couple of ways that we can manage this. One concept is called importance, which is essentially the significance we attach to certain events, outcomes, or situations in our lives. It's about how much attention and emotional energy we invest in particular things, and this can significantly influence our experiences and the realities we attract. Let's go back to the movie metaphor. Imagine that life is like a big movie screen and various scenes are playing simultaneously. Each scene represents a potential event or outcome in our lives. The concept of importance is like a spotlight that we shine on certain scenes, making them more prominent and visible to us. When we give something a lot of importance, we focus on it intensely, either because we desire it strongly or because we fear it deeply. This strong focus acts like a magnet, pulling that particular scene or outcome closer to us. It's like saying to the movie screen, "Hey, this is essential to me, pay attention to it." On the other hand, when we don't place much importance on something, it's like dimming the spotlight on that scene. It becomes less visible and has less influence on our experiences. The tricky part is that sometimes we unknowingly give importance to things we don't want. For example, if we constantly worry about something negative happening, we inadvertently attract that negative outcome because our focus on it is so intense. Importance influences the outcomes and experiences an individual attracts in their life. According to Vadim Zeland, the level of importance an individual assigns to a particular desire or outcome directly affects the strength of their intention and the energy they emit into the space of variations, or the realm of infinite possibilities. The more emotionally charged and important a desire is, the more likely it is to attract corresponding variations of reality. Here's why this concept is essential to manifestation. Importance acts as a magnet, drawing specific variations of reality that resonate with the emotional charge of the desire. When you assign high importance to a goal or intention, you emit strong energetic vibrations that align with the reality you seek, making it more likely to manifest. High importance creates a resonance between you and the variations of reality that match your desire. This resonance increases the likelihood of experiencing positive quantum shifts that lead you closer to your desired outcomes. By keeping importance on your own goals and desires, you avoid getting entangled in the energetic fluctuations of social pendulums. Social pendulums can be divisive and distract you from focusing on your personal objectives. When you have high importance for your own goals, you naturally reduce resistance to achieving them. A lack of resistance allows you to flow more effortlessly through the space of variations and experience smoother transitions to preferred realities. Understanding the concept of importance helps you become aware of where you are directing your emotional energy. I think it's important to note that sometimes wanting something too much can create a kind of resistance in us, where we are constantly thinking about our goal, and it accumulates a high level of importance. It can also mean that we are focusing on a specific path to that outcome, and this can also create its own type of resistance. By consciously managing the level of importance attached to various desires, you can achieve a sense of emotional balance and avoid unnecessary fluctuations in your energy field. And, to help us to reduce importance, balance is needed. By balance, we mean avoiding extremes and finding the middle ground in our thoughts, emotions, and actions. If we think of life as a tightrope or a seesaw, we know that if we lean too far to one side or the other, we risk losing our balance and falling off. Balance, in reality transurfing, is like being centered and stable on that tightrope or seesaw, ensuring that we don't tip too far in any direction. When we're balanced, we're neither overly attached nor indifferent to specific outcomes. It's about having goals and desires, but not being consumed by them. It's also about acknowledging and processing emotions, both positive and negative, without letting them overwhelm us. Finding balance means being present in the moment and not getting caught up in past regrets or future worries. It's about accepting what is and making the best of the current circumstances while keeping an open mind for positive changes. Let's imagine that you're driving a car. Being balanced means staying in your lane, obeying the traffic rules, and maintaining a steady speed. If you drive recklessly, you might crash. If you drive too slowly, you might not reach your destination and likely piss other drivers off. Balance is about surfing life with awareness and control, allowing you to enjoy the journey and reach your goals safely. In reality transurfing, balance is considered essential because it helps us avoid unnecessary conflicts, negative emotions, and unproductive behaviors. By maintaining balance, we become more adaptable, resilient, and better able to navigate through life's ups and downs. And this leads me to something very interesting that Zeland calls pendulums. These are collective thought forms or energy fields that influence and manipulate people's minds and emotions. Pendulums act like powerful energy whirlpools, trying to draw individuals into their influence and control. Imagine pendulums as big invisible magnets that have a strong pull on people's attention and emotions. They can be created by shared beliefs, ideologies, or groupthink. They can exist in the form of political movements, religious dogmas, ideologies, or even fanatical fandoms. When you encounter a pendulum, it tries to pull you in. It feeds on your attention, emotions, and energy. The more attention you give it, the stronger it becomes. It's like getting caught in a powerful whirlpool that keeps pulling you in deeper. Pendulums don't care whether your attention is positive or negative. As long as you're emotionally invested, they thrive on that energy. It's like a tug of war, and the pendulum wants to win you over to its side. To navigate pendulums effectively, you must be aware of their influence and avoid getting entangled in their web. Instead of getting caught up in their emotional pull, you can observe them from a distance and remain emotionally detached. Imagine you're watching a raging river from the safety of the shore. You're aware of its power, but you're not diving into it. Similarly, you can be aware of pendulums and their influence without letting them control your thoughts and emotions. So I'll give you a couple of examples of pendulums using social media. Imagine viral videos as a whirlpool in a vast ocean of social media. When a video goes viral, it creates a powerful suction, drawing people's attention and emotions into its captivating content. The more people get pulled into this whirlpool, the stronger it becomes, influencing what people talk about and share online. The viral video pendulum can lead to an addiction to social media scrolling. People may find themselves spending excessive time watching countless videos, unintentionally wasting valuable time that could be spent more productively. Sometimes pendulums aren't just about wasting your time and can be far more insidious and divisive. In the US, the outcome of the 2020 presidential elections was a toxic pendulum that led to violence and seemingly irrational behavior. In extreme cases, pendulums can lead to war. For example, nationalism was the pendulum that triggered World War I, resulting in the deaths of millions. But perhaps the most insidious pendulum is negative self-talk, which is a form of negative pendulum that affects your inner dialogue and self-perception. It can create a loop of self-critical thoughts, limiting beliefs and doubts, which may lead to feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and low self-esteem. The negative self-talk pendulum can gain momentum over time, especially if individuals continuously engage with and reinforce these negative thoughts. The more one feeds into and believes the negative self-talk, the stronger the influence of the negative pendulum becomes. So this is a great place to start when thinking about avoiding negative pendulums, by looking into ourselves to see where we might be self-sabotaging. Pendulums can be both positive and negative. Positive pendulums can inspire unity, cooperation, and positive change, while negative ones can lead to division, conflict, and destructive outcomes. We can avoid becoming sucked into pendulums by setting up boundaries and not allowing ourselves to get pulled into it emotionally. This also ties in with balance. Emotional detachment is key, and it's wise to nurture developing this ability so that you can focus on what you do want out of life rather than what you don't. It's also important to be very conscious of your boundaries, what you will and won't engage with, so that you can conserve your energy and keep your focus firmly on moving into the timeline that you desire. This could be as banal as making a decision not to get involved in gossip, limiting the amount of time you spend scrolling through social media, or even watching less TV. Watching the news can be a veritable stew of pendulums that can activate fear or rage. Now that we've got the pesky distractions covered, let's look more deeply into the intention concept. Intention refers to the power of your thoughts and desires in shaping the reality you experience. It's like a roadmap or compass that guides you toward your desired destinations in life. It's that spotlight I mentioned earlier. You can think of intention as a clear, heartfelt wish or goal that you set for yourself. When you set a strong and focused intention, you broadcast a message to the universe about what you truly want. It's like placing an order on the cosmic Amazon. The more specific and passionate your intention, the clearer the message is. Imagine you are the captain on a ship, and your intention is the destination you want to reach. As you sail through life's waters, you keep your focus on that destination, adjusting your course as needed. Your thoughts, actions, and choices are like the wind and waves, propelling you toward your intention. Of course, sometimes doubts, fears, or distractions can veer you off course, which is like having storms or detours that might throw you off track. That's why it's crucial to keep your intention strong and steady. To make your intention more powerful, it's essential to believe in yourself and your dreams. Develop an unshakable faith that your wish will come true. When you truly believe in your intention, the natural laws of reality conspire to help you achieve it. There have been a number of studies looking into the power of intention, and you might be most familiar with the placebo effect in medical research, where a patient experiences a positive response to a treatment or intervention solely based on their belief in its efficacy. But intention is not just about thinking positively, it's about taking action too. You're walking toward your dreams instead of just dreaming on the sofa. Your actions are the steps you take to make your intention a reality. So what this tells us is that you set your intention with clarity and passion. You keep your focus on it like a guiding star. You believe in yourself and take inspired action. Your intention is your guiding compass, helping you to navigate through life with purpose and create the reality you desire. The final concept I'm going to look at is following the path of least resistance and how this will allow you to know when to take inspired action. Zeland speaks about quantum shifts, which are significant changes or transitions between different variations of reality. These shifts are metaphorically associated with the concept of quantum mechanics, where at the quantum level, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed or measured, causing a sudden change in their state. Quantum shifts often occur along the path of least resistance, meaning that when an individual flows with the natural laws and principles that govern the space of variations, the transition between parallel realities becomes smoother and more effortless. There are 6 practical ways to follow the path of least resistance. The first step is to become aware of any resistance you might be experiencing in your life. Resistance can manifest as negative emotions, limiting beliefs, doubts, or fears that hinder your progress. Recognize areas where you might be feeling stuck or facing obstacles. When you hold on to rigid beliefs, fears, or negative emotions, they create resistance in your experiences, and this resistance can make transitions between parallel realities much more challenging and require more effort. Next, clearly define your desired outcomes and intentions. Focus on what you want to experience and achieve, rather than dwelling on what you don't want or focusing on your fears. Be specific and passionate about your goals. I'd go so far as to suggest you even write them down and repeat them regularly. The subconscious is the mind of habit, and this is one way to anchor an intention in your psyche. In addition to weeding out the negative thoughts, actively cultivate positive and empowering thoughts that support your desired outcomes. Replace self-doubt and negative self-talk with affirmations and beliefs that align with the reality you want to create. Repeated affirmations are another excellent way of embedding beliefs into your subconscious. Be open to new opportunities and possibilities. Embrace the flow of life and be flexible in your approach. Sometimes, the best outcomes come when you allow things to unfold naturally rather than forcing them in a specific direction. And as these events occur, you will find opportunities to take inspired action. The other important thing is to listen to your gut. Intuition can guide you toward the path of least resistance. Trust your inner wisdom and instincts when making decisions. You might want to do meditations designed to increase your trust in yourself and level up your intuition, and I've created a meditation for this purpose, which you might find useful. Again, this is training your mind to go in a certain direction. Avoid becoming overly attached to a specific outcome or how it should unfold. Let go of subjective expectations and allow life to deliver what serves your highest good. While setting intentions is essential, practicing detachment from the outcome is key. Trust that things will unfold perfectly, even if it looks different from what you initially expected. I've definitely noticed this in my own life. When I've forgotten something or loosened my attachment and importance to the outcome and the way it will show up, the thing I desired seems to happen naturally. It's as if you're in the shower and you're holding a bar of wet soap in your hands. When you squeeze it, it shoots out of your hand, but if you gently hold it, it stays there. So there should be a balance between desiring your outcome but not holding on to it too tightly, and at the same time keeping an eye out for quantum shifts. Quantum shifts are like seeing movement happen in your life script, signs that something is changing. These movements can be an invitation to take inspired action based on the quantum shifts that you observe happening in your life. That's why balance is so important. You must be aware of any changes, but don't go looking for them, if that makes sense. Keeping poised and positive would be a good approach to take. Taking inspired action is a biggie. When you listen to your gut and you're open, detached, and flexible, you're more likely to be able to see how you can take action that feels inspired and aligns with your intentions. Avoid forcing actions out of desperation, impatience, or fear. Instead, act from a place of confidence and trust in the process. Gratitude is also an important component. It's such an expansive feeling. When you embrace gratitude, there's no space for all the negative crap. Keeping a gratitude journal has been scientifically shown to produce benefits ranging from better sleep to increased self-esteem. In fact, research using brain imaging techniques has shown that practicing gratitude can lead to changes in brain activity. It activates areas associated with positive emotions, empathy, and social bonding. I'll leave links below to these studies, and I'm also offering a free gratitude journal for you to download and print out. You'll find the link in the description box below. It's never too late to change direction or move toward your dreams. Each second in your life is another step into a new reality and another opportunity to move into another timeline. If you live to be 70 years old, this means that you will have lived 2,204,520,000 seconds, and this gives you, at the very least, millions and millions of opportunities to pivot into a new reality. As promised, I'm going to end with a personal story. I'd been living in London for years and years, and in the end, I got pretty sick of it. I desperately wanted to live somewhere else, somewhere hot, ideally, with a beach in front of me. Over the years, I looked at multiple places to relocate to, and there was always some important box that wasn't ticked. Either the move and the visa was attached to a job, or there were no viable job opportunities for me in the places I looked at. I wanted somewhere that gave me an outdoor lifestyle, close to nature, and I didn't want to be tied to a specific job. Ultimately, I was seeking some type of freedom, but none of the options I explored seemed to provide me with everything I needed. In 2018, through a series of events that happened naturally, I found myself being invited to visit Cyprus. I'd never been there, and it wasn't really on my radar, but I went out of curiosity. I arrived in a rural, coastal part of the island, wedged between a huge forest and mountains and the Mediterranean Sea. To my surprise, I found that it ticked pretty much all of my boxes. The people I was visiting drove me around, and one day they drove past a vacant house right by the sea. I immediately felt that this was where I wanted to be. When I returned to London, I had no idea how I could achieve this dream. I needed to have remote work to even begin to consider this move, but I gave intentions setting a shot and spent about 3 weeks affirming that I was living in Cyprus, in the house I desired. I had 2 dogs that I walked on the beach and was able to work remotely. This was all said in the present tense, as if I was already living this life. Then I threw away the list of my intentions and just got on with life. About a month later, the people I had visited sent me a message asking me if I would be able to house-sit their place for 3 months in the winter. After thinking it through, I thought it might be an idea to check the island out in the winter and see if I could live there in reality. That was my inspired action, but I was still worried I wouldn't have an income for 3 months and would be living off of savings. Nevertheless, I bit the bullet and decided to go anyway. Less than a month after I arrived, I was offered a fully remote job. I accepted it, and the following February I returned to London to pack up my life and move to another country. To cut a long story short, I've been living in the house on the beach since early 2019. I work remotely, and I have 2 rescued dogs. I'm sometimes still surprised that I managed to do this, especially because I had many concerns about uprooting and totally changing my lifestyle. I think it's important to put it out there that changing timelines does not necessarily mean living happily ever after. Each timeline comes with its own challenges, and you always take yourself with you, so any personal issues you faced may or may not travel with you into this new reality. For me, this new timeline has had some ups and downs that may never have happened had I continued to live in London. But it was my choice to take this on, warts and all, and for me, the long-term benefits are worth all the shitty times that happened in this new timeline. Be careful what you wish for, as they say. Every choice has consequences, both good and bad. But the challenges themselves can be opportunities to move into a more positive timeline, and here's a little hack for moving into timelines. The closer your next potential timeline is to your current one, the easier it is to move into it, so you're refining and iterating as you go along. The idea is that when you resonate with a variation of reality that is not too distant from your current state, the transition becomes smoother and more effortless. By focusing on outcomes that are feasible and in line with your current reality, you reduce resistance and make it easier for the desired shifts to occur. You've probably already seen this in your own life. It's a bit like hopping onto lily pads to get to the lily pad you like best. Jumping from one lily pad to another could represent the process of transitioning from one variation of reality to another, with each lily pad symbolizing a different reality or outcome. By selecting lily pads that are not too far apart, the transition becomes smoother and more achievable. So let's deconstruct this recipe from my own life so that you can adapt it to your circumstances and goals. First of all, I set an intention to live a certain way. The path of least resistance eventually led me to an unexpected place that gave me food for thought. I made the decision that this was where I wanted to be, and I set an intention to live there, which I affirmed to myself daily for around 3 weeks. I crafted my new timeline in my imagination. I repeated my list daily with a fake smile on my face to fool my brain into releasing all the good chemicals. I made myself believe that it would come to me by not focusing on the many ways it wouldn't happen, but simply saying to myself, this is what I'm heading towards. This is my focus. But in truth, I had absolutely no idea of how it would play out or how it would even be possible. I didn't obsess about it, and I didn't try to figure out ways to make it happen. I left the how to the universe, or the laws of reality, or whatever you want to frame it as. I took myself out of the equation and let the gods of destiny take over. I lessened the importance of it and kept balance by not going into the minefield of how to uproot my life and start again in another country. If you think about the reality of moving from a huge city to a tiny village on a remote island, the negatives can soon stack up. You have to start a whole new life from scratch. You don't speak the local language, and the culture is completely different to what you're used to. You're leaving behind friends, familiar culture, amenities and processes, and entering into the unknown. It can be a mindfuck if you look at it too closely. So I made a conscious decision to live from faith, not fear, and I have to say, that wasn't easy. And then I let it go. In time, the path of least resistance threw up some quantum shifts in the form of opportunities that I could never, ever have imagined. From these opportunities, I took inspired action, and that led to a chain of events that opened up other opportunities in my new timeline. I have to say, when I decided not to chase after things, but rather to attract them to me, it was a game changer. Letting things come to you is a truly liberating stance to take. It's the difference between facing life with open hands or clenched fists. And we've all got that power. If I can do it, stubborn, fearful, and inflexible beastie that I am at times, you can do it too. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this dive into reality transurfing and that you found it valuable and inspiring. If you have any questions or thoughts, please pop them in the comments below, and do let me know how you get on with diving into your own parallel realities and becoming the star of your own new movie. Don't forget to download the free gratitude journal. It's a really useful tool to keep you positively focused. In the meantime, happy reality surfing until we meet again.